Welcome to The Line. Delegates gathered in Cleveland this week for the 2016 Republican National Convention. Now, next week we'll hear from some of the New Mexico delegates who went, but as they make their way back home, we asked this week's Line opinion panelists to weigh in on what they saw and heard from afar this week. I'm joined at the table by Daniel Foley, former New Mexico House Minority Whip. Dee Dee Feldman's here, former state senator. Laura Sanchez-Rivey, attorney at Cuddy & McCarthy LLP, and Mary T. Torres with the law office of Mary T. Torres. I love that. Now, Daniel, of all the things we have to cover from what happened at the convention this week, just a first opening broad question. What surprised you this week? Because we had a lot of indications of what was going to happen when the week started, but a whole lot of surprises came. What was the biggest one for you?
The biggest one, obviously, I think the biggest one has got to be what everybody's been talking about, which was the non-endorsement from Senator Cruz.
Right. Were you surprised by that?
I was. I thought he was more politically astute. I mean, I think he could have come out there. First of all, if you're not going to endorse the guy, don't show up.
Gotcha.
He could have said something that would have been less perceived as a slight.
Right.
You know, I get it. I think that surprised me. The other thing I'm going to tell you that surprised me, which is probably going to get me in trouble with some of my friends, is just the zero tolerance that the Trump folks have for any slight they think appears to happen to Donald Trump. I mean, anything that happens, they just go bonkers. I mean, they're booing, they're hysterical, they're doing this stuff. And then I would say that the third thing, that the top three would be the speech by Trump's wife. I think the speech doesn't surprise me because anybody that's given speeches, we've all given speeches. We always take from great speeches that we've heard out there. We always, you know, and sometimes people, I mean, look, we got Joe Biden that gave a speech, remember, where he completely gave a speech that was written by someone else, and then he took credit for it. What surprised me was, again, the mishandling of the Trump folks coming out and saying, yeah, it was a great speech. We liked the First Lady's speech, and yes, we took stuff from it. Congratulations to Michelle Obama. And I think everybody would have said, okay, it's the coming forward and saying, no, we didn't do it, no, we didn't know this, no, we didn't have anything to do about it. I mean, it just goes back to the conversations we've had around this table, Gene, that when the media comes to you, the best thing to do is just say, got me, sorry, made a mistake. It's not to, you know, put the fight up and say, you know, I'm going to draw a line on something that at the end you're going to be wrong on.
That's right. Very interestingly, you know, now that a few days, I'm going to stay on the speech here for a quick second. Now that a few days have gone by, there's been an interesting turn where folks are feeling almost a little bit badly for Mrs. Trump. Because you get put in a tough spot.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
What's your sense of that?
I felt really bad for her too, because you did know that somebody else wrote that speech. And you know she wanted to do a great job representing her husband, and this is the first time that she's going to be out there, and she wants people to see, you know what, I'm more than a pretty face. I'm an intelligent, articulate woman. She did a great job in her speech, and I think most people believe, I mean, and she did. She delivered it really well. But there were things when she said, I wrote it myself. She said that to Matt Lauer right before. And so that was a problem, and I agree with Dan. If they just would have said, it was our fault, it was a great speech by Mrs. Obama, you know, and I liked it so much that we included it. But then to blame Hillary, that it was her fault when she wasn't even involved in it. I mean,
it's all Hillary's fault. It's always Hillary's fault.
I know, and
you're actually making my segue for the senator because, sorry about that, Mary, just a little tight on time. The idea, Dee Dee, that, you know, I'm thinking about the Chris Christie speech, a number of speeches that boiled down to things about Mrs. Clinton that left people a little uncomfortable. In your view, is that just red meat convention stuff and that's okay?
Oh,
that's
it's
just what
never
happens?
been this hateful and this accusatory before. I mean, this really, for me, has been like the Rocky Horror Show, with a call and response, with one of the former candidates associating Hillary Clinton with Lucifer, another one blaming Hillary directly for her son's death in Benghazi. This is, you know, this is pretty amazing, and it's because the only thing that unites them there, and given the Cruz disloyalty, I guess you would say, that Dan talked of, is their hatred of Hillary. I mean, it's a violent, volatile atmosphere on the floor of that convention right now. I mean, what would happen if a Hillary supporter appeared there? I mean, it could
wandered in off the right.
I don't think that would
there have been
happen,
chants of lock her up. I mean, it looks a lot like a lynch mob.
But Laura, you know, interesting on Dee Dee's point, I've watched a lot of the MSNBC coverage, CNN, everybody. And they're making the point that Didi made, that everyone has made up their minds already. And it really is about, beating up Mrs. Clinton and softening her up, trying to get to this vague, undecided voter. Do you know what I mean? Does that make sense to you? Is that undecided voter going to be moved by this kind of rhetoric? Is this something that's attractive to people? I know it's hard to guess for folks, but
well,
tough.
My husband's independent is a declined estate, and he's probably part of that undecided group, and he doesn't watch these things. So he's, I would expect that most people who are, especially in New Mexico, that are declined estate, aren't paying attention to, the conventions at all. And that's the thing, is everybody on the convention floor has made up their mind. I mean, that's their job as delegates. Same for the Democratic convention next week. They're supposed to go in rallying and trying to get everybody inspired to go back to their states and actually help elect this person. So, we get a very skewed view of the electorate from these conventions. And so I don't think that the vast majority have made up their mind necessarily, or that these conventions really reach the intended audience, if that's who they're intending to rally, is the independent, or people who just haven't made up their mind yet. So for me, I know you asked Dan, what the most surprising part, besides the plagiarism of Mrs. Obama's speech, that was surprising. It was surprising that clearly somebody wrote it for her. I think everybody who understands politics knows that. But the fact that they would plagiarize so much of it is just shocking and really unprofessional. But I think also for me, speaking of the MSN coverage, was Congressman Steve King's comments, and he's a big supporter of Trump, his comments about how white people have done more for civilization than any other subgroup. And his just, making those comments.
That word subgroup was interesting.
Yes, saying subgroup.
We're all subgroups here.
It was pretty shocking for him to say something that
one of us is quickly becoming the minority subgroup. We got to be careful.
That's what the issue is.
That's the thing.
That's
this is an ignorant comment to make.
That's right. Let me ask you another question, Laura. Stay with you. I just want to kind of keep it spinning here. There's so much that happened this week, including our governor being at the microphone for not a terribly long period of time. We're so used to at conventions hearing her tell that story of how she became a Republican and the things in the parking lot and her dad. There was none of that.
No.
None of that. And in fact, turning it over to somebody else was a very interesting thing.
Compared to how she was highlighted in the last convention.
Exactly right.
I mean, it's just really, and to me it signals that she really is not on board with the Trump ticket at all, that she wasn't really interested in supporting him and in using her own identity and her own, what she's, she's still the chair of the Republican Governors Association. And for her,
That's right.
It's very clear that she just isn't on board. I think some people have criticized that she didn't do enough, that she should really, and certainly the Democratic Party has said, she should completely come out against him and be stronger about it. But the fact that she did what she did, I think, is probably in a the most tasteful way, I guess, for her to show her protest about that. And I think it was good to turn it over to somebody else who is a new, a young Republican, somebody who's up and coming. That probably was the most tasteful way to handle it.
Right.
The interesting part about the whole process, kind of piggybacking on your question to Laura about the independents, I think it's not that they're trying to get the independents. Like, look, Laura's right. They're not watching this. What they're trying to do, and I think it's showing where we're going with the media and the people in this country, is that you got to say the most outlandish thing to get the front page of the paper, to get that Twitter comment, because that's who the independents are listening to. Right? The independents are not paying attention to the convention. They're waking up today, getting on the deal, and they want to see the 10-second snippet of, somebody said this. And I think it's proven that, the one thing I think, maybe I'm crazy for this, that Trump is proving is that he seems to have this ability to have started off so far to the right, yet when he first announced he was running, everybody said he was too liberal. It's going to be so easy for him to tack back to the middle of the road and still be perceived as conservative.
That's because he's not really part of any party.
Right, that's because he has no philosophical
He's not really a Republican.
That's right.
He's an
Mary, pick up on that if you would.
And you know what has been interesting about the speakers, because I've been watching it every night, there's a wide range of speakers from all walks of life. We don't have big name speakers, but we have a wide range of speakers. And I think that's interesting. They're like, a lot of them are everyday speakers, everyday people, which I think is a strategy to say, look, Trump is reaching out to everyone and Trump has support for everyone.
I had the same thought when people started announcing they're not showing. I was like, wow. But as a programmer, it makes space for a whole other interesting thing.
But I think at the end of the day, kind of to Didi's comment, at the end of the day, saying that, look, I think blaming Hillary Clinton for Benghazi is going to backfire. I don't think it's gonna. I think it's going to be hard-pressed when you have the mother of a person that was killed saying, you're at fault. I think that's the kind of stuff that average people go, you know, that's not a politician, that's not a movie star, that's not, and then you follow it up with 2 or 3 folks that were on the ground that say, we believe it's her fault for what happened. I think that Benghazi thing is going to be a hard thing to shake, and I think it's going to be hard to counter at the Democrat convention. I don't think they're going to have parents and guys that were on the ground, boots on the ground. They're going to rely on what I think they're going to rely on is famous people, well-known people to put up that fight, and I wouldn't want to be on the opposite side.
Shots of Mary Steenburgen are coming, that's for sure. Dee Dee, interestingly, we have avoided probably one of the bigger stories of the week, which is a vice presidential pick. And he spoke, Mike Pence. I'm curious from all of you if you think, and obviously a New Mexico bounce too, is there something in this VP pick that either changes what Dan brought up, you know, moves him back to the middle? Is it more of a red meat pick? And does it do anything for New Mexico, for Trump voters here?
Well, I don't think he'll have much influence here in New Mexico. He's the traditional Republican pick. He's not red meat for the real well, he is in some ways for the real evangelicals.
432 out of 435.
Yeah, evangelicals. But the story was stepped on. The story was stepped on by Cruz. The story was stepped on by Trump, who, when he appeared jointly with Pence, put words in his mouth and dominated the interview. So, you know, the convention, I agree with Dan. I think people just watch the news coverage of it, but it has been mishandled PR-wise. And so the message that they've outlined about make America great again and make it secure, have more jobs, that has been eclipsed by Melania's speech, by Cruz, and this is, of course, we're talking in advance of Trump's speech tonight, on Thursday night. So we don't know whether, you know, he'll come out with a bounce on that. But the coverage has been dominated by the mishaps.
That's right. That's right. We're about a minute, Mary, and Dee Dee makes a very good point. You think about any point in a cycle like this, there's the classic, and again, I'm glad you mentioned the program. You know, we're sitting here taping this before the actual Trump speech. But we already know they're going to do the traditional thing is come out together and wave to the audience for about 4 minutes to rapturous applause. And that's always the, you know, we think about Al Gore and back when, you know,
and
it's
they
a
were
way to
dancing
announce
the
the
music,
exactly.
Yeah.
What can we honestly expect from Mike Pence as the running mate? What's his role on the campaign trail?
You say as the running man? Is he going to be out there?
No, I don't know. I don't know if they like each other.
Trail.
Right. I don't know if they like each other. And coming out last night when they were kind of doing like an air kiss, you know, they don't really seem like they like each other. I think Trump picked him really for red meat to really tell the Republican Party, look, this is a conservative pick. This is your favorite Tea Party person, and I think that was a smart move on his part. But I don't think they really get along. They really get along that well. So we'll see how it is.
Most of those guys don't get along.
Please.
I mean, you
good point. A lot of egos going on here.
I mean, Reagan and Bush weren't the best of friends. Clinton and Gore weren't the best of friends.
Pence is at least humble. He seemed very humble last night. I thought he did a great job in his speech, and his mom there, and that whole bit. I thought he really did a good job, and it is unfortunate that the Cruz thing may have just detracted from such a great speech that he did.
I think the pick is going to allow Trump to go back to the left now and get back into that middle ground area and start to do some stuff and send out
by picking Pence. He could send him to do.
Now when he makes this policy stance, Pence can go talk to the Christian right, the Christian coalition, can go talk to the the Tea Party folks, and say, I'm going to do this. And you know we're going to work on this, but Trump gets the the public image of saying, "Look, I'm coming back to the left."
Right. Laura Sanchez-Reve, your thoughts on the VP and the bounce we could expect, the VP pick, excuse me, and what we can expect in this campaign with him.
I mean, I don't think it's going to make much difference. I agree with Dee Dee to New Mexico voters. I think that you know the interview that he had on 60 Minutes says a lot about. The way that Trump and Pence will work together or not work together. I mean, I think that interview was awkward and didn't work well, and you can see that Trump overshadowed Pence completely. And so I don't really see a good working team there.
You know, Mike Pence, I don't know a lot about him, but he's certainly no slouch. I can't imagine. I mean, everyone's got egos at this level.
No.
Well,
I can't imagine taking this kind of disrespect publicly from somebody.
Well, I think that when you signed up,
Trump did it last night. Even because usually a president is like a no-show until Thursday night.
That's right.
Well,
But
this is his
Trump
show,
came
so-
out, it is his show, and I thought that in a way, and I don't mean to have bad motives towards him, but it was like Pence did such a great job. He did a great job, and it was his
have the
moment out
moment.
there
That's
in the
right.
sun.
That's right. Let him
And
have
then, and then Mr. Trump came out there going, "Hey, remember me?" And I was like, "Dude, why did you do that?
that's who he is.
Just let it
And
be
the only
his,
reason,
let
I think
it
the only
be his
reason, the only reason
show."
Pence jumps on is I think Pence is sitting in the back room going, I'm one heartbeat away from the president.
That's right, that's right.
One
Thank
heartbeat
you.
away
That's a
from
good
the
note to
presidency.
finish on. That's why people say yes to these things. Exactly. When we come back to the line, we discuss the latest in the ongoing legal battle over management of New Mexico's food stamp program.